They ever heard the saying, "The buck stops here"? It's a powerful statement about taking responsibility, especially when you're in charge. Today, we're diving into a dramatic, ancient story that shows exactly what happens when a leader fails to do just that. It's the story of Eli, a high priest in Israel, and it's a gut-wrenching tale about family, failure, and the severe consequences of turning a blind eye. So, who was Eli? Picture this. He was the top spiritual leader of his nation, serving in the Tabernacle at Shiloh, the very center of Israel's worship. He was the judge, the priest, the man everyone looked up to for guidance and to connect with God. He had two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who were set to inherit his prestigious role. On the surface, it all looked pretty good. But underneath, a deep dark corruption was festering. Eli's sons were, to put it mildly, out of control. The Bible describes them as scoundrels who had no regard for the Lord. While people came to the tabernacle to offer sacrifices and seek God, Hophni and Phinehas were abusing their power in the worst ways. They would bully people, using their priestly authority to take the best cuts of meat from the sacrifices for themselves, completely disrespecting the laws God had set. They were treating holy offerings like their personal barbecue, but it gets even worse. They were also engaging in immoral acts right there at the entrance to the tabernacle, defiling the very place that was meant to be sacred. Now, you'd think their father, the high priest, would have come down on them like a ton of bricks, right? Well, that's where the story takes a tragic turn. Eli knew what was going on. He heard the reports, the whispers, the outright complaints from the people. And he did talk to his sons. He'd say things like, "Why do you do such things? I hear of your evil dealings from all the people," but that's all it was. Talk. There was no real discipline, no firm action, no removal from their duties. He confronted them, but he didn't restrain them. It was a classic case of a parent who was too indulgent, perhaps too weak or too afraid, to truly correct his children. He honored his sons more than he honored God, allowing their disgraceful behavior to continue under his watch. This is where the concept of leadership accountability really comes into focus. Eli's failure wasn't just a private family matter. As the high priest, he was responsible for the spiritual integrity of the entire nation. His son's corruption was a public scandal that was causing people to despise the Lord's offering. Their actions were a poison, and Eli's inaction was allowing that poison to spread. He failed to uphold godly standards, and this neglect was leading to moral decay at the heart of Israel's worship. God, as you can imagine, was not pleased. The situation had become so dire that he sent an unnamed prophet, a man of God, to deliver a chilling message directly to Eli. This wasn't just a gentle reminder, it was a thunderous warning of impending judgment. The prophet reminded Eli of how God had chosen his ancestor Aaron to be the first high priest, bestowing a great honor upon his family line. But now, that honor was being revoked. The prophet delivered one of the most sobering lines in the entire story. "Those who honor me I will honor, but those who despise me will be disdained." God declared that the priesthood would be cut off from Eli's family. His lineage, once blessed, would now be cursed. The prophet foretold a future where no one in Eli's family would live to an old age. His descendants would see distress in the tabernacle, and they would be reduced to begging for a priestly role just to get a piece of bread. It was a prophecy of complete and utter downfall. And to prove this wasn't an empty threat, God gave a specific sign. Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, would both die on the same day. This was the immediate, tangible proof that God's judgment was real and it was coming. Eli's personal failure to discipline his sons was about to bring ruin upon his entire house. Now, let's pause here. What was Eli's reaction to this devastating news? He basically just accepted it. There's a quiet, almost passive resignation in his response. This might seem like humility, and perhaps in some way it was, an acceptance of divine sovereignty, but it also reflects a man who seems to have lost the will to fight, a leader who had become complacent and blind to the severity of the crisis until it was too late. Interestingly, the Bible mentions later that Eli's physical eyesight was failing, that he was going blind. This physical blindness serves as a powerful metaphor for his spiritual blindness, his lack of discernment, and his inability to see the corruption happening right under his nose. But the warnings didn't stop with the unnamed prophet. God was about to raise up a new leader, and he used a young boy to deliver the final, crushing blow. This boy was Samuel. Samuel's mother, Hannah, had brought him to the tabernacle as a child to serve the Lord under Eli's mentorship. One night, as Samuel was lying down, he heard a voice calling his name. Thinking it was Eli, he ran to him. This happened 3 times. Finally, the aging priest realized it wasn't him calling the boy. It was God. Here we see a flicker of Eli's old wisdom. Despite his failures, he still recognized the voice of God, even if he couldn't hear it directly anymore. He instructed Samuel on how to respond. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." This is a beautiful moment of mentorship. Amidst his own tragic story, Eli guided Samuel into his prophetic calling. He was passing the torch, even if he didn't fully realize the weight of the message Samuel was about to receive. So Samuel listened, and the message God gave him was terrifying. God told Samuel that he was about to do something in Israel that would make the ears of everyone who heard it tingle. He reaffirmed the judgment he had pronounced on Eli's house, stating that it would never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering. Why? Because Eli knew his sons were blaspheming God, and he failed to restrain them. God held him directly accountable. His indulgence was seen as complicity. The next morning, Samuel was terrified to tell Eli what he had heard, but Eli insisted he knew it was a message from God and he needed to hear it. When Samuel recounted the entire vision, every last devastating word, Eli's response was one of quiet submission. He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. He accepted his fate. The judgment was sealed, and it came to pass exactly as God had said. The Philistines attacked Israel, and in a desperate move, the Israelites brought the Ark of the Covenant, the physical symbol of God's presence, into the battle, carried by Eli's sons. They thought this sacred object was a magic talisman that would guarantee them victory, but they were wrong. Israel was defeated, the Ark was captured, and 30,000 foot soldiers were lost. And, just as the prophet had foretold, Hophni and Phinehas both died on that same day. When a messenger returned to Shiloh with the news, he found Eli sitting by the road, waiting and trembling for the Ark of God. When the messenger told him what happened, that Israel had fled, his sons were dead, and the Ark was captured, the shock was too much. Upon hearing that the Ark of God had been taken, Eli fell backward off his chair, broke his neck, and died. He was 98 years old and had led Israel for 40 years. His story ended in tragedy, a direct result of his leadership failure. The loss of his sons was devastating, but the loss of the Ark, the symbol of God's presence, was the final blow. Eli's story is a powerful cautionary tale that still echoes today. It's not just about a father failing to control his kids. It's about the immense weight of responsibility that comes with leadership, especially spiritual leadership. It shows us that complacency is dangerous. Turning a blind eye to wrongdoing, whether out of fear, convenience, or misguided love, has catastrophic consequences. Eli's mixed priorities, valuing his son's comfort over God's honor, led to the downfall of his family and a spiritual crisis for his nation. But the story doesn't end in complete darkness. Out of the ashes of Eli's failed leadership, God raised up Samuel. Samuel grew to become one of Israel's greatest prophets and judges. His rise signifies a crucial truth. God's sovereignty prevails despite human failure. When one leader falters, God is already preparing another. He is never without a faithful servant. The narrative of Eli forces us to look in the mirror. Where in our own lives are we being complacent? Are there areas where we are choosing comfort over correction? Are we honoring the people around us more than we honor the principles we claim to believe? Eli's neglect of his spiritual responsibilities impacted not just him, but his family, his community, and his entire nation. His legacy serves as a stark reminder of the importance of accountability, integrity, and the courage to act decisively when things go wrong. It's a timeless lesson on the high cost of failed leadership. Thanks for sticking with me through this intense story. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the powerful lessons from ancient texts. Drop a comment below. What's your biggest takeaway from the story of Eli? I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video and God bless.